The morning sun cast long shadows across the checkered floor of Sunrise Cafe, as Zara Blackwood tied her apron strings with practiced efficiency. At 22, she had learned to move through the world with careful precision, always aware of how others perceived her. The large port wine birthmark that covered the left side of her face from temple to jawline had been her constant companion since birth, a deep burgundy stain that no amount of makeup could fully conceal. The cafe was already bustling with the usual morning crowd. Business executives clutched their phones while demanding their usual orders. College students hunched over laptops with oversized coffee cups, and tourists studied maps while deciding between pastries. Zara navigated through it all with quiet competence, her movements fluid despite the weight of countless stares that followed her every step. She had been working at Sunrise Cafe for 3 years, ever since dropping out of art school when her mother fell ill. The steady paycheck was more important than her dreams of painting, though she still sketched in her spare time, usually portraits of people who looked at her without flinching. Those were rare subjects indeed. As she wiped down table 12 near the window, Zara caught her reflection in the glass. The birthmark seemed darker in the morning light, more pronounced against her pale skin. She quickly looked away, focusing instead on the streaks she was removing from the table's surface. The bell above the entrance chimed. A group of 4 women entered, their designer handbags and perfectly styled hair announcing their status before they even spoke. They were the type of customers Zara dreaded most, wealthy socialites who treated service workers like invisible obstacles to their perfectly curated lives. They settled into the corner booth, immediately pulling out their phones to document their breakfast plans for social media. Zara approached with menus, keeping her left side angled away from them as much as possible. "Good morning, ladies. Can I start you off with some coffee?" she asked, her voice steady despite the familiar knot forming in her stomach. The blonde woman in the cream-colored blazer looked up, her eyes immediately locking onto Zara's birthmark. Her expression shifted from casual interest to poorly concealed disgust. "Oh my God," she whispered to her companions, not quite quietly enough. "What happened to her face?" Zara pretended not to hear, maintaining her professional smile. "Our special today is the blueberry pancakes with fresh whipped cream." The brunette woman across from the blonde leaned forward, studying Zara's face with the fascination of someone observing an exotic animal. "Is that some kind of disease? Is it contagious?" Heat flooded Zara's cheeks, but she kept her voice level. "It's just a birthmark, ma'am. Nothing contagious." "Would you like to hear about our coffee selections?" The third woman, a redhead with sharp features, let out a small laugh. "Well, this certainly kills the appetite. Couldn't they put her in the back or something? I mean, we're trying to eat here." The blonde nodded in agreement. "Seriously, it's like something from a horror movie. How do they expect people to enjoy their food with that walking around?" Zara's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her notepad. 3 years of this job, and the cruelty still cut deep. She had developed thick skin, or so she told herself. But moments like these reminded her that some wounds never fully heal. "Perhaps I could get you a different server," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "That would be perfect." The blonde replied, her tone saccharine sweet. "Maybe suggest they keep you in positions where customers don't have to see you. It's really quite disturbing." The other women murmured their agreement, their phones now discreetly pointed in Zara's direction. She realized with horror that they were taking photos, probably to share with their social media followers as some sort of cruel entertainment. Zara turned to walk away, desperate to escape their mocking laughter, when she nearly collided with another customer. He was tall, with kind brown eyes and dark hair, dressed simply in jeans and a navy sweater. Unlike everyone else in the cafe, his gaze didn't linger on her birthmark with curiosity or revulsion. "Excuse me," he said gently, steadying her with a light touch on her arm. "Are you all right?" She nodded quickly, not trusting her voice. The women in the corner booth were still snickering, their voices carrying across the cafe like poison in the air. "Actually," the man continued, his voice raising slightly so the women could hear him clearly, "I was hoping to compliment the excellent service here. I've never encountered such professional and graceful staff. It's refreshing in a world where kindness seems to be in short supply." The women's laughter died abruptly. Zara looked up at the stranger, surprised by his deliberate defense of her. His eyes held a warmth that made her feel, for just a moment, like she wasn't something to be pitied or mocked. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, the expression reaching his eyes. "Thank you for making this place feel welcoming. Not everyone appreciates good character when they see it, but some of us do." As he walked to an empty table by the window, Zara felt something shift inside her chest. It had been so long since someone had spoken to her like she mattered, like she was more than just her appearance. The feeling was foreign and fragile, like a flower trying to bloom in concrete. The socialites eventually left without ordering, their moods soured by the stranger's intervention. They made sure to leave their cruelest comments as parting gifts, but somehow their words had lost their power. The stranger's kindness had created a buffer around Zara's heart, deflecting the worst of the damage. For the rest of her shift, she found herself glancing toward his table. He sat quietly, reading a worn paperback novel and nursing a single cup of coffee. When she brought him the check, he left a tip that was larger than most customers' entire orders, along with a simple note written on a napkin, "Your strength is beautiful." As Zara walked home that evening, the stranger's words echoed in her mind. She paused at a shop window, catching her reflection once more. For the first time in years, she didn't immediately focus on the birthmark. Instead, she saw herself as the stranger might have, a young woman who had faced cruelty with dignity, but continued to be kind despite the world's harshness. Maybe, she thought, as she unlocked her apartment door, there were still people who could see past the surface. Maybe there was still hope for connection, for understanding, for something more than the cruel laughter that had defined so much of her life. The seed of that possibility took root in her heart as she fell asleep that night, growing stronger. With each gentle memory of brown eyes that had seen her truly, the next morning arrived with a gentle rain that drummed against the cafe windows, creating a cozy atmosphere that Zara found comforting. She had barely slept, her mind replaying the encounter with the kind stranger over and over. His words had followed her into her dreams, wrapping around her like a warm blanket she hadn't realized she needed. The rational part of her mind knew he wouldn't return. Kind strangers were like shooting stars, beautiful and brief, never meant to linger in ordinary lives like hers. But at exactly 9:30, the bell chimed, and there he was. He wore a simple, gray hoodie and carried the same worn paperback, his presence somehow making the bustling cafe feel calmer. When their eyes met across the room, he offered that same gentle smile that had stayed with her all night. "Good morning," he said as she approached his table, notepad ready despite her suddenly unsteady hands. "Good morning. The usual coffee?" she asked, surprised that she remembered his order from yesterday. "Actually, I was hoping you might recommend something. You seem to know this place well." His voice carried a warmth that made her feel like he genuinely valued her opinion. Zara felt her cheeks flush, but not from embarrassment this time. "The cinnamon maple latte is really good. I helped create the recipe. You're a coffee artist too?" He seemed genuinely impressed. "I'd love to try it." As she prepared his drink, Zara found herself taking extra care with the foam art, creating a delicate leaf pattern on top. When she returned to his table, he studied the cup with appreciation. "This is beautiful work. Do you do other kinds of art?" The question caught her off guard. Most people didn't think to ask about her interests beyond taking their order. "I used to paint, still do sometimes, just not professionally." "What kind of painting? Portraits mostly? People's faces tell such interesting stories." She realized what she had said and quickly looked down, self-conscious about mentioning faces. "They do," he agreed softly. "Every line, every mark, every expression, they're like maps of someone's journey through life." Something in his tone made her look up again. He was studying her face, but not in the way others did. There was no pity, no curiosity about her birthmark. He looked at her the way she imagined an art lover might study a masterpiece, seeing beauty in every brushstroke. "I'm Damien, by the way," he said, extending his hand. "Zara." His handshake was firm but gentle, and he held her gaze without flinching. Over the following weeks, Damien became a regular fixture at the cafe. He arrived each morning at 9:30, always choosing the same window table, always requesting Zara as his server. Their conversations grew longer and deeper. Spanning everything from books and music to dreams and fears, Zara learned that Damien traveled frequently for work. Though he was vague about the specifics, he spoke multiple languages, had visited countries she could only dream of seeing, and possessed a deep appreciation for art that rivaled any museum curator. Yet despite his obvious education and refinement, he never made her feel inferior or small. "You have an artist's eye," he told her one afternoon, as she sketched during her break, drawing the elderly man who fed pigeons outside the window. "The way you capture emotion, the subtlety of expression, it's remarkable." "It's just a hobby now," Zara said, closing her sketchbook self-consciously. "The best art often starts as passion before it becomes profession," Damien replied. "Have you ever considered pursuing it again?" The question stirred something painful in Zara's chest. "I had to leave art school when my mother got sick. The medical bills, the treatments. This job pays better than painting ever could. I'm sorry about your mother. Is she better now?" Zara's throat tightened. "She passed away 2 years ago. But the debt remains." Damien's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "She must have been proud of you. The way you care for others, your strength in facing adversity. Those are gifts not everyone possesses." As the days passed, Zara found herself looking forward to work in a way she never had before. Damien's presence transformed the cafe from a place of endurance into a sanctuary of connection. When other customers made cruel comments about her appearance, she would catch Damien's encouraging smile from across the room and find the strength to continue with grace. He began bringing her small gifts: a book of poetry by her favorite author, out of professional sketching pencils, small potted orchid for her apartment because she had mentioned loving flowers but never being able to afford them. "You don't have to do this," she protested, each time, though her heart soared at his thoughtfulness. "I want to," he always replied simply. "You bring light to my days. Let me bring a little to yours." One rainy Thursday morning, a particularly cruel customer reduced Zara to tears in the storage room. Mrs. Henderson, a regular who never missed an opportunity to comment on Zara's appearance, had loudly declared that the cafe should hire normal-looking staff because Zara's face was disturbing to decent people. When Zara emerged from the storage room, eyes red and hands shaking, she found Damien waiting by the counter. He took one look at her and his usual gentle demeanor shifted into something fiercer. "What happened?" he asked quietly. "It's nothing. Just another lovely customer sharing their opinion about my face." Damien's jaw tightened. "Show me." Before Zara could protest, he had spotted Mrs. Henderson at her usual corner table, still holding court about proper hiring practices. Damien walked over with purposeful strides. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying an authority that immediately commanded attention. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about appearances and standards." Mrs. Henderson looked up clearly, pleased to have an ally. Finally, someone with sense. "That girl's face is simply inappropriate for customer service." "You're absolutely right," Damien said, his tone perfectly agreeable. "Appearances do matter tremendously. For instance, your behavior this morning has shown me exactly what ugliness looks like. It has nothing to do with physical features." Mrs. Henderson's mouth fell open in shock. "Beauty," Damien continued, "is found in kindness, in grace under pressure, in the strength to face cruelty with dignity. By that measure, Zara is the most beautiful person in this room, and you are the least. Suitable for decent society." He placed a $50 bill on Mrs. Henderson's table. "This should cover your coffee and compensate you for the inconvenience of finding a new place to spread your poison." "Good day." Double quotes. Mrs. Henderson left in a huff, her face burning with embarrassment. The entire cafe had witnessed the exchange, and several customers quietly applauded. When Damien returned to Zara's side, she was staring at him in amazement. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," he said firmly. "No one has the right to treat you that way. Ever." That evening, as Zara walked home through the gentle rain, she realized something had fundamentally shifted in her world. For the first time since childhood, she felt protected, valued, seen for who she truly was rather than what she looked like. But questions nagged at her mind. Who was Damien really? His clothes were simple, but she had noticed the quality of his watched the expensive leather of his wallet, the way he never hesitated to leave generous tips or defend her so boldly. There was something he wasn't telling her, some piece of his story that remained hidden. As she climbed the stairs to her small apartment, Zara wondered if she was ready for whatever truth lay beneath Damien's mysterious kindness. Part of her was afraid that knowing more might shatter the beautiful bubble they had created together. But another part, the part that had been awakening under his gentle attention, whispered that some risks were worth taking. The orchid he had given her bloomed on her windowsill, its delicate petals catching the last light of day, like her growing feelings for the mysterious stranger who had changed everything. It was something beautiful and fragile, something worth nurturing despite the uncertainty of what tomorrow might bring. 3 months had passed since Damien first walked into Sunrise Cafe, and Zara's world had transformed in ways she never thought possible. What started as brief morning conversations had evolved into long walks after her shifts, quiet dinners at small restaurants, and hours spent in bookstores where Damien would read poetry aloud while she sketched the other customers. Their relationship existed in a bubble of careful intimacy. They talked about everything except the obvious questions that hung between them. Zara never asked why Damien always paid in cash, why he never mentioned family or friends, or why someone so clearly educated and refined spent his days in a modest cafe. Damien never pushed for more than she was ready to give, never asked about her past relationships or her dreams beyond art, but bubbles, no matter how beautiful, are fragile things. The morning everything changed started like any other. Zara arrived at work to find Damien already waiting outside the cafe, holding 2 cups of coffee from the expensive shop down the street. "Playing hooky from your usual order?" she teased, accepting the perfectly crafted latte.
"I wanted to try."
"Something different today," he said, but there was something in his voice that made her look at him more carefully. He seemed nervous, almost fragile in a way she had never seen before. They sat on the bench outside the cafe, watching the city wake up around them. Office workers hurried past with their phones pressed to their ears. Delivery trucks rumbled down the street and pigeons gathered hopefully near their feet.
"Dora,"
Damien said finally, his voice unusually serious. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you months ago." Her stomach dropped. This was it, the moment she had been dreading. He was married. He was leaving. He had been playing some elaborate game with the scarred waitress for his own amusement. "Kay," she said quietly, bracing herself for the inevitable disappointment. Damien pulled out his phone and, after a moment's hesitation, showed her the screen. It displayed a news article with a large photo of him in a tailored suit, standing in front of a gleaming office building. The headline read, "Tech billionaire Damien Sterling announces new charitable foundation." Zara stared at the screen. "The words not quite registering?" "I don't understand. My name is Damien Sterling. I'm the founder and CEO of Sterling Technologies. We develop software for major corporations worldwide." His voice was steady, but she could see the fear in his eyes. "I'm worth approximately $2.8 billion. The coffee cup slipped from Zara's hands, splattering across the sidewalk. She stood up abruptly, stepping away from the bench, as if distance could somehow make his words less real. "You're lying," she whispered. "I'm not. I wish I were, because I know how this looks." Damien stood too, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I know what you're thinking, do you?" Her voice was rising, and passers-by were starting to stare. "Do you really know what I'm thinking?" "So I'm thinking that for 3 months, I've been some kind of charity case. Some project for the bored billionaire who wanted to feel good about himself. That's not true, and you know it." Damien's voice was firm, but gentle. "What we have, what we've built together, has nothing to do with money." Zara laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor. "Everything has to do with money when one person has billions and the other can barely pay rent. You've been slumming it with the poor scarred girl, haven't you? Getting your kicks from playing normal? Stop it." The sharpness in his voice made her pause. "You know me, Zara. You know who I am when I'm with you. That's the real me, not the man in the suit in that photo." "I don't know anything," she said, backing away further. "I don't know you at all." Tears were streaming down her face now, and she could feel the familiar stares of strangers drawn by the spectacle. The girl with the birthmark, crying in public, probably dumped by another guy who couldn't stand to look at her. But when she met Damien's eyes, she didn't see pity or disgust. She saw the same pain she felt, reflected back at her like a mirror. "I came here 3 months ago because I was tired," he said quietly. "Tired of people who only saw dollar signs when they looked at me. Tired of wondering if anyone could ever care about Damien the person instead of Damien the billionaire. I chose this cafe randomly, just somewhere quiet to think." He stepped closer, and she didn't back away this time. "Then I saw you handling those cruel women with such grace, such strength, and I was amazed. You faced their cruelty and remained kind. You were real in a way I hadn't experienced in years." His voice broke slightly. "I fell in love with you, Zara, not with a project, not with a charity case, but with the most incredible woman I've ever known. Love." The word escaped her lips like a breath. "Yes, love. It's the kind that makes you want to be better, that makes you believe in goodness again. You gave that to me." Zara closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the complexity of emotions warring in her chest. Anger at his deception, hurt at feeling foolish, but underneath it all, something else. Relief, maybe, that the connection she felt had been real for him too. "Tell me now?" she asked finally. "Because I want to offer you something, and I need you to understand that it comes from love, not pity." Damien reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "There's an art residency program in Florence. Full funding, private studio, connection with master artists. I've been working on establishing it for months, and I want you to be the first recipient." Zara's eyes widened. "Damien, I can't accept that." "Why not?" "Because it's too much. Because it changes everything. Because I don't know if you're offering it to me or to your conscience. I'm offering it to the most talented artist I know, who deserves every opportunity to share her gift with the world." He opened the folder, revealing documents and photographs of a sunlit studio overlooking Italian gardens. "Your talent shouldn't be limited by circumstances or by other people's inability to see past surface differences." Zara stared at the papers, her heart pounding. It was everything she had dreamed of and never dared to hope for. "There's no obligation," Damien continued. "No strings attached. If you decide you never want to see me again after today, the opportunity is still yours. All I ask is that you don't let my identity prevent you from accepting what you've earned through your own merit. And if I do want to see you again," the question slipped out before she could stop it. Damien's smile was soft and hopeful. "Then I'll visit Florence as often as you'll let me. I'll bring terrible Italian phrase books and embarrass myself trying to order coffee. I'll sit in the piazza while you paint and feel grateful that you let me be part of your story." Zara looked down at her hands, stained with coffee and marked by small burns from the espresso machine. Then she looked at the photographs of the studio, imagining those same hands, creating something beautiful in the Italian sunlight. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Of course, take all the time you need." As they stood there on the busy sidewalk, Zara realized that nothing had really changed, and everything had changed all at once. Damien was still the man who brought her books and defended her from cruel customers. He was still the person who saw beauty in her sketches and made her laugh during long afternoon conversations, but he was also someone with the power to transform lives, including hers, and that knowledge carried a weight she wasn't sure how to bear. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. That first day when you defended me against those women, was that real?" Damien's expression grew fierce. "That was the most real thing I've ever done. Watching them try to diminish you made me angrier than any boardroom betrayal or corporate sabotage ever has. You bring out the best in people, Zara, and you deserve to be protected from those who can't see it." As Zara walked home that evening, the folder tucked carefully in her bag, she passed a shop window and caught her reflection once more. The birthmark was still there, still marking her as different. But for the first time, she wondered if different might not mean damaged. Maybe it just meant unique, original, one of a kind. Maybe she was ready to find out what the world looked like. When you stopped hiding and started shining instead, the orchid on her windowsill had bloomed fuller than ever, its petals catching the golden light of sunset. Like love. like opportunity, like the future spreading out before her. It was beautiful and uncertain, and absolutely worth the risk. Tomorrow, she would give Damien her answer. Tonight, she would dream of Italian sunlight, and the possibility that some stories, even those that begin with cruelty, can end with the most extraordinary kind of love.